Hello everyone, I am Satyam Kumar, Community Manager at Hackers Unity. Tonight we are joined by Pratik Khedekar, a data scientist who has built analytical and machine learning system across e-commerce, finance and consumer goods. Pratik, instead of me telling about you, could you give us a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you, Satyam, and your team to inviting me on this podcast. So pretty much happy to share my background and all my insights about the learning about this field and overall the career trajectory. Yeah, so my name is Pratik Khedekar. I'm currently working as a data scientist with Coca-Cola in United States. Okay. Overall, I have been in the data science and software industry since last 5 years. And yeah, like even initially, I started my career back in India, where I graduated during the COVID. After that, joined one of the company, and later followed by multiple transitions in the job. I came here for my master's in United States, and followed by that, like I'm currently like after my master's, I started to work with different companies over here. So at the same time, like I have started to build my like a startup as well. So currently working on all the things simultaneously. Yeah.
Great to hear about the transition you have did from like India to USA from like a global company like Coca-Cola Beverages. Sir, as you have developed an open source framework called Feature IQ, as I've seen on your GitHub, to
Yeah.
automate feature engineering using knowledge graph, what is the biggest bottleneck in manual data preparation today that inspired you to build this?
So currently in the data science and analytical space or the machine learning space as well. Whenever anyone works on any new kind of data, right, it comes with its own set of complexities of how the data is, the volume, and everything. And in data science, the feature engineering is completely like an art that everyone has a different point of view towards looking towards it. So currently, there was no generalized framework in terms of how these things actually work. Okay, there was no proper guidelines like if for any new particular domain or anything, how this features can be created for multiple data sets. So for that purpose, actually, I created one open source library called as Feature IQ, which not only helps in understanding you the data from a domain perspective, but also what kind of features will be appropriate for the underlying downstream machine learning processes. So overall, the vision was towards creating something more generalized and having like a proper framework which will help any new user to access to work on any new set of data and create meaningful outputs out of it.
Sir, that makes totally sense. In a recent interview on India.com about strategic decision making, you mentioned that many data pipelines fail because they stop at analysis without considering how the user and actually makes a decision. How do
Mhm.
you measure the usability of a model beyond standard technical metrics like accuracy?
When in the real world context, the metrics that we have, that is the standardized metrics, are accuracy, precision, recall, and all other things, those don't play much role when it comes to like explaining to the business, right? Any business you have, they will always come with a question that how much revenue are we increasing, how much churn we are decreasing, or how much uh, retention we are currently able to solve, right? So they need the business related impacts. So currently there is a huge gap in terms of like even when someone new is coming into any industry, they just understand the technicality about any new ML model or any project, but they don't understand like how to communicate this with any stakeholder or any director manager, because these people understand the language of business. Okay, so you should always be able to transition your technical knowledge to a non-technical formats to explain those to various stakeholders, because at the end whatever data crunching you do, it's all about having those proper numbers over there.
Sir, you have successfully shifted from like teams away from basic broad categories from pricing and moved them toward algorithmic clustering. How hard it is to convince a non-technical business executive to trust an algorithm over their traditional pricing methods?
So in such kind of scenarios, it is always important to show a before and after analysis. Okay, so because someone who is from a technique from a business perspective, there is always question your approaches, like why you have done few things, right? In that way, you can actually explain like what process did you did. Okay, like explaining the underlying logic behind it, and giving them the metrics which are more relevant towards the business is something how we can explain those to them. So usually when it happens when traditional algorithms are currently in place and you want to propose something new, at that point a comparison between what was before but versus what was after, and due to this changes, what is the estimated outputs that we can expect from a business point of view is something that you can clearly explain with them.
Sir, as in your recent 2026 paper, you explored how AI tools like ChatGPT are changing how consumer product discover products. You found
Mhm.
that challenger brands can actually beat market leaders if they optimize for AI. What is the one thing companies should be doing right now to rank higher in AI generated answers?
So there is something called as a concept of generative engine optimization, okay, which is simply called as GEO. So a lot of companies have their websites where the content is actually built on some client side scripting languages or some of the things which are not actually adapted to the browsers or the new systems that they have. So they should start implementing the multiple processes where they can well optimize their content on their web pages, so that this new web crawlers that the large language models actually use as a baseline, these models can actually traverse to that data, and using those, it can be ranked on any chat platform. The reason for this is nowadays, like if anyone needs anything, right, they just go to ChatGPT or they just go to Claude, just type, hey, what is the best resources for XYZ. In that way, only the content which is well optimized for this new uh, LLMs and have the generative engine optimizations logic behind their web pages, those only get list in the suggestions that the ChatGPT or Claude actually gives us. So it is always important that the founders or the companies should actually go through their websites, check if the content of their website is actually really well optimized for the platforms. If no, then they should like start creating those logics behind it.
So that is really fascinating and much of shift from SEO as search engine optimization. As in that same paper, you noted that AI models often lose track of information if it is placed in the middle of long prompt. For the developers listening, what is the best way to structure context so the AI doesn't hallucinate or forgets data?
Can you just repeat that question once more, please?
Yes, sir. Sir, as you noted that AI models often lose track of information, uh,
Mhm.
if it's placed in middle of a long prompt for the developers listening, what is the best way to structure context as if we are giving a prompt to AI so the AI doesn't hallucinate or forgets the data?
Oh, okay. So that particular portion of the paper mostly focuses on the concept of how well your prompt should be well structured. So it's pretty much evident to understand that large language models, after some particular time, based on their context window, usually this is around like 200, 200, 200K parameters, something like that. After that context window, it tends to forget the previously learned information from the system, from the chat window. So usually, whenever you start, you actually have to structure a prompt in such a way that you have to mention that you will be acting as a um, person. Okay, for example, if you're auditing one paper, you are acting as an auditor for the XYZ paper. Okay, each and every sentence should not go more than 10 to 12 words. Okay, the second statement should be like, okay, this is the current input that you will be provided. After that, it should be like, what should be your task into it, what is the expected deliverables that is needed from you. Also, what are the guidelines that the uh, prompt should that the model should follow when it is creating those outputs. Okay, a lot of times what happens is, based on how it is trained and some of the guardrails that how this LLM companies place, the outputs are designed in a standard templates, right? So in order to make sure that the output should be in the formats that you actually need, it is always important to mention the guardrails and also the expected formats of that outputs. So right now, I guess if you go on any Claude or any ChatGPT websites, they have this developer contents. Okay, so any developer can just go through those formats. They have like listed out a lot of good details like how to design a prompt, and using those templates, they can design anything. Yeah,
So, like I've recently studied, like a bit of a cheat code, like the methods parts by Google, that setting a persona and like setting action, and like they have many, like you said, template for the prompt that we are designing. That would be
yeah,
helpful. That's what you are saying. Like we should
yeah,
set the persona, tell him what type of format we need, the
yeah.
context that we need. Yes, sir. On to that, you have worked across fast-moving consumer goods, finance, e-commerce. Out of those three, which industry data is the hardest to clean and wrangle, and why?
I would say it would be the two fields. Which is first is the retail, second is the e-commerce data, because these are the two domains where the data generation process is quite fast. Okay, you get tons and tons of data based on how the product is being designed, what kind of features it provides. So for example, transaction data, telemetry data from the application or the website. We have consumer information, we have geo information, and so on. So in these two fields, the amount of data is quite vast. The number of problem statements that you can solve in this is also quite vast. And also the experimentation phase for these domains is also quite enormous. So if anyone like really wants to start how this actually these two domains actually work at, they can just go to any um, publicly available data sets. They can start looking at those. They can start working around it in terms of cleaning, performing EDAs, creating models, and like having insights based on it. So yeah, that would be the overall how this data actually works in these two main domains. Yeah.
Sir, as you did a blog on Medium, you talk about the industry shifting from descriptive analytics, asking what happened, to predictive analytics. What is the
Yeah.
biggest technical hurdle a company faces when trying to make that leap?
So in this, there's a lot of difference in terms of how companies actually look at their current data. Okay, there are chances that a lot of companies don't actually have that understanding that what magics that can be done using the data that they are collecting, right? So as I mentioned, like previously, any for any company, they will mostly look at from the perspective of like revenue, sales, and all those things. But if they really want to upscale, like if they want to solve any particular problem statement, for example, we want to grow our sales in North region or South region, something like that. At that point, this predictive analytics comes into place. So in this particular area itself, like um, all the information related to how the data is coming from, the volume, the variety of information. At the same time, based on the problem statements, that how you can wrangle this entire data, create some meaningful insights out of this, and how this can be used to assist the business in terms of making some critical decisions for them. So yeah, like currently the market has been pretty much being shifted from uh, the descriptive to a predictive workflows. But at the same time, the only the big techs or companies who are more tech driven are using this heavily. There are still a lot of scope in India also, like a lot of companies can hire such people and look into those metrics and start growing on their uh, any problem statement that they are facing over here.
Sir, I have also a personal or more of a common question. As I have seen in your journey, you are completely dedicated toward like data science or data scientist roles. As a
Mhm,
student who is starting his career or in BTech or in a second year itself,
mhm.
how can they start if they do not have an like language learning? What's the roadmap for the student to like start this journey of data science or becoming a data scientist?
Really good question. So I have like been advising a lot of people who are currently in their third year or fourth year of their engineering at the end, quite confused about like how this field is, what should be done next. The one core advice that I mostly provide to all these folks is that first, understand your basics. Okay, so being a data scientist or anything is like being like an editor or like writer. Okay, just assume in that context. So for that, to be on that particular position, first you need to understand how the letters actually work, how to frame your sentences and everything, right? Then you can start creating paragraphs, then long form content, and then you can be actually an editor. Same is the context with the data science and AI field. A- Anyone who is starting, they should first purely focus on their fundamentals. Okay, understand the maths behind all the algorithms, understand the logic behind it, when to use what. Then once you have the core basic foundation, then you can start like working on some problem statements. Okay, problem statements. You can get some data sets available on various platforms. You can download those data sets, create some problem statements using Claude or ChatGPT. Once you have those problems, you can start working on that using a fundamental knowledge. And in this way, you can actually start creating your portfolios. Now what is happening is, in India, like a lot of education institutes are offering this courses, right? Like AI courses, ML data science and ML engineering degrees itself. Everyone is doing the theoretical part, but no one is understanding the crucial part of how important it is to have your portfolios. Okay, I see a lot of people in India currently don't have a LinkedIn profile as well. Okay, they don't like focus much on creating their personal brand, like posting content on such kind of platform, because that gives you a good network. At the same time, it gives you visibility of what other are also doing in the industry. So anyone who is starting maybe in your third year or fourth year, just be open to like understanding your fundamentals, because in any interview you go in future, your fundamentals will always be the first part that should play a vital role. Okay, that is the first thing. Second, having a good portfolio. Start building. Like it's okay initially your projects will not be that good, but as you start building more and more, you'll get to understand how things actually work. Third thing is to start like showcasing your content on the social platforms. Nowadays, there are a lot of content creators on Instagram, also content creators on LinkedIn as well. So showcasing that content also shows the credibility that you are really working on something important, like you're building. Also, you have that much of knowledge, because whenever you go to any interviews, right, one piece of resume cannot justify how much you know, but your portfolio, the projects in the portfolios can actually tell you a lot more to a new person who will be acting as your recruiter or something like that. So he will be getting more context into it. So it's pretty much evident that if you follow the step by step process, you can truly get into this industry, and there is no much hurdle into it.
Sir, like you have
Yeah.
mentioned about the portfolio, like on LinkedIn, many of us have a doubt regarding that, like how to start it. Like we should start by daily posting or not daily
Mhm.
posting. We should start like if we go to an event, we should post that. Or what is the best way? Many of us try to perfect LinkedIn, like assuming many of the like professional working on industry, like as you have a perfect
Mhm.
portfolio, as I have seen, structured company detail, the main courses that you have did, but also with that you have extra courses that you have not stated there also. So how should like a student starting should post there, or what is the a format for that? I'm not
Mhm.
chasing let's say perfection in it, but to have a start, how should one start with like making the portfolio?
First of all, I would so let's understand this from two parts. First is from a perspective of portfolio. Second is a perspective from a social platform such as LinkedIn or Instagram. Okay. First, for any kind of portfolios, right now we like have multiple platforms where actually data sets are available. Okay. Now, let's say you are interested in e-commerce. Okay, you like this field very much. You saw that, okay, this field, the data that comes into this field versus how the websites are taking decisions, is you find it fascinating. The first thing that you should do is like understand the domain a little bit. Okay, what actually happens behind the scenes. If you go on ChatGPT or Claude, it can 100% give you all the information of how things actually work behind the scene. What is the e-commerce domain? What happens from the day you place an order till you get an order in hand, what actually happens behind it. Now once you have this basic understanding of the domain, start creating some problem statements. Okay, once you have these problem statements, then based on that, you can like have some data sets available publicly. Start working on those. Now what this will direct you is, this will help you in understanding the domain. Okay, what kind of problem statement they solve, what kind of data do you have, how you are structuring your work approach into it. Once this complete project is done, create a standardized templates for any portfolios and start adding those projects into it. Okay, even GitHub pages, if you know GitHub pages, GitHub page also helps you to create a separate page for it. Start adding those. When you add this, it is always important to understand, explain in the description that what this problem statement was. Okay, what was your approach, what was your conclusion. So let's say I you send me a portfolio link. Okay, I just opened it. I saw that, okay, you have just added generalized term like Titanic data set predictions. Okay, there's something I won't get some value from it. Okay, but if you add something in terms of, I solved a problem related to e-commerce churn. Okay, this kind of problem statements helps in terms of creating curiosity in the minds of the people who are actually reading your context. Okay, so that is also very important to have, like, if your is your content really that authentic that people can actually follow. Okay, so that's what, so take it very simple example, like why you follow any page on Instagram. Okay, the simple logic is you found that content well explained, well relevant, that's why you follow. Similarly is with your content building as a personal brand itself. Okay, you start, so now let's move to the part of content creation. Did you got the context of the overall portfolio building?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so let's start on the part of content creation on the social platforms such as LinkedIn and Instagram. So over here as well, your content should actually provide some value. Okay, in the beginning, as you mentioned, if you are totally fresher, it's completely fine. You don't have to perfect your post or anything like that. It's a learning phase. But in this initial journey, you can start posting about the new things that you learned today. For example, let's say you are learning LLMs. So you can just add like, I started learning this topic. These are my insights. That would be it. Okay. Every new topic you learn, you can start posting about it. This will, what this actually does is this gives the even the LinkedIn or Instagram algorithm itself a view in terms of, okay, this person is posting consistently. Now, like, they start to increase the reach of your content to multiple people. Okay. In this step by step process, you can actually start creating your entire portfolio. It will not happen in like 1 month or 2 months. It will always take 1 to 2 years. But this entire journey will help you to showcase your technical skills to the world. Because at the end of the day, I previously mentioned that one resume cannot justify your knowledge, your skills, right? But if you actually give your future recruiters this kind of portfolio links or your social links, it will pretty much be evident that this person actually knows. He knows about the things that he is, and it will always give an upper edge in those scenarios.
I completely understood that. As according to you, I understood how should I approach this. Personally, I am saying that. And I
Mhm.
have a question regarding the data scientist casual interference and retail analytics you did earlier. I was just really curious. You have researched using things like weather data to predict retail footfall. Like, how do you
Mhm.
decide which random outside factor are actually worth testing in your casual interference model?
So that is like a very technical explanation to it, but I will just explain you in a very simple formats. So what happens is, um, when you work on when we work on this with these big companies, there are a lot of other factors which the company is interested in terms of knowing. For example, weather. Okay, does the weather actually affect our sales? So this is a question of not correlation; it is a question of causality. Okay, is there a possibility that due to the in upcoming next 2 weeks, the weather is likely to fluctuate in terms of heat by X degrees or Y degree or Y? What is the possibility that we should push our products or push our um, what you can say, our SKUs to those stores or those platforms? So these, when you work with big data and with complex problem statements, at that point, this small details are something what companies actually look forward to as well. Okay, it might be a question that based on the data you won't get much of a clarification, but it gives you direction like how to think. Okay,
Yes.
so even in that particular paper article that had published, my main intention was revolving around how like weather related information also plays an important role in explaining in the causality of the products at multiple retail stores. So over here, like in United States, there are like big stores, right? Like Walmart, we have Kroger's, Target, and so on. Over there, like these are like super giant stores over here. So these stores usually tend to do some advanced analytics in terms of understanding their forecastings of how which products to push based on these other factors over there as well. So yeah, that's why it is just a brief article. So the technicality as are on this are quite a bit complex, but if anyone wants to learn, they can contact on that one. Yeah.
The physical supply chain definitely add a wild layer of unpredictability. We have expressed passion for like visual analytics. When you are presenting complex machine learning outputs to a stakeholder, as you mentioned earlier
Mhm.
also, what is your go-to visualization technique as in terms of explaining to make the data instantly understandable? Let's say the person is not non-technical from a background. How would you explain him that data to that person?
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So your base question was how to explain complex machine learning or analytical output to a stakeholder.
Yes.
So and also like what kind of visuals that we use. Right now, from a theoretical perspective, we have a lot of visual graphs and various kind of output presentations that are being currently done. But at the end, when it comes to explaining this to a stakeholder or any person from the business, they only use very basic formats. Okay, we currently only use like line graphs, we use bar graphs, pie charts are also sometimes used, but it is not standard practice. Third thing is nothing but like normal column and row formattings. Apart from that, we also look into the scatter plot related information. You might have seen, right? Like when you have information in multiple clusters. So that is also one of the point where we represent our data. So when it comes to explaining this, that the business people are more sounded towards the domain and the business. They don't understand much on the technicality part, depending upon how sound the person is. So for them, it is always important to make sure that you drill down your content to a very basic level. Okay, convert your metrics and numbers into explainable sentences, then deliver those statements, like deliver those presentations or emails or write-ups to the stakeholders. And it's always important to for structure in forms of what did you saw, okay, why did you saw, and what is the recommendation based on what you are trying to convey.
Sir, keeping the visuals focused simply on deep understanding of yours,
Mhm.
stakeholders understand. Uh, Sir, based on that, I have a last question to wrap up. Like you have emphasized that turning raw data into narrative requires strong data engineering for teams
Mm.
that are overly focused on training complex model. What basic data engineering fundamentals are they usually ignoring that is causing the headache for them for the starters?
Mhm. Okay. So whenever Uh, so any data science person actually works. It doesn't directly work on the raw data itself. Okay, so raw data, as in like there are multiple systems which are like transactional system, SAP systems, CRM systems, even telemetry data. These systems generate a lot of data which is being pulled onto the databases. Okay, now the data engineering team is actually responsible for maintaining these multiple pipelines where they uh, inject the data into the storage platforms. They perform some level of aggregations, filtering, some business rule constraints that they wanted to apply. All these things are done before storing this data into something called as hot storages. Okay. Now, as a transaction, depending upon the transaction volume and velocity, the data engineering team is mostly responsible for creating those logics in terms of how this downstream processes where the data analytics and data science team works for those how this data should be well structured. Okay. Now, so there are like multiple steps into this which go into consideration, like right from choosing the platforms where you want to store, also in terms of the complexity of how this data is important to the business and so on. Once these things are actually figured out from the data engineering perspective, then the underlying processes and the dashboards and the downstream teams actually use this particular data. So data engineering also plays a very vital role in this entire ecosystem of predictions, creating new recommendations, and for the businesses, because those are the people who actually handle your incoming data and um, make it available for the downstream applications. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for the like the deep insight based on your experience. I would love to connect in future also for like podcast or one-on-one mentorship if you are available. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir,
sure, sure.
from the
Mhm.
team also of Hackers Unit.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. And definitely like reach out if you guys need any additional information or any guidance. Yeah. Thank you so much.